Hi, my name's Ken Brown. I want to talk to you today a little bit about my adventure with throat cancer. About 4.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with a tonsil that had turned cancerous. It had already affected my glands on the side of my throat. Not a whole lot, but enough that it needed to be treated as well. So I got the diagnosis. The three worst words in the English language: you have cancer. You cannot imagine what happens to your brain when that is spoken. Boom, it just explodes. All these worries, all these questions, all these concerns. Is it going to kill me? How much is it going to hurt me? Is this going to be something that's going to get me beaten up and debilitated for days or months? Or how long is it all going to last? Am I going to be able to mow the grass? Am I going to be able to cook a meal for myself? How much is this going to really affect me? These are the questions that just explode in your head. And there's no way to get any answers at that time. Well, I'm not like everybody else. I do something that's called compartmentalizing. A lot of people can do it, a lot of people can't. Basically, it's taking the emotions out of a situation, putting it in a little box, and then putting it back in the side of your brain, and you don't think about it for a while because you've got it closed up there. There's other things that you need to think about. You need to get your act together. You need to find out what's actually going to be happening to you. How hurt are you going to be? What's actually going to be involved? Well, the first thing that you do, like everybody else, you go online and you start looking at things up and you read things, stories from other people that have been through it. And some of them are pretty good, some of them are not any good. Um, I like to think that this is one that's going to be pretty good because, in the end, the hero wins. He pulls the sword from the stone, he slays the dragon, he climbs the highest mountain, he swims the greatest sea. He comes out the hero in the end, but he still has to fight. This is a story of a miracle that was presented to me by God and my journey taking that information and going forward with it. I had found out that my treatments were going to be 7 weeks straight. 5 days a week would be radiation, 1 day a week would be chemo. The chemo was cool. They put a port into me up here, direct into my heart, and they just tied into that every time they were giving me the treatment. And after the second time I got there and realized I'm going to be here for 3 or 4 hours and nothing to read, nothing to do, I brought my headphones in. So I would just sit, lay back, take a nap if I felt like it, and just listen to some music for a few hours. And then they tap me and they say, "Hey, Ken, you're all done." Okay, awesome. Thanks very much. By the way, one of the things that has continued on with me is a dry mouth. So you'll have to forgive me if I take a sip every now and then. It's just the way it is. One of the other lasting effects is that I cannot eat anything spicy. Absolutely nothing. Too much black pepper, it's like poison. It's just horrible, painful. I don't like that because I used to like spicy foods. Let's get back to the story. So I take the emotion out of the situation and I look at things and I say, okay, these are the big problems and these are the small problems. Let's separate them a little bit and let's see what we can show. All right, the little things, you break those down, and it's the questions about: am I going to be able to mow the grass? Am I going to be able to cook for myself? And am I going to be needing a cane or a walker? How bad is it going to be? What's it going to do to me? Yeah, that's an important question, but that's still what I consider a small question. The bigger question is: how much is this going to affect me physically and mentally? Now, I consider myself a pretty strong person mentally. I do see a therapist on a regular basis. I think most people should be doing that. I'm also a firm believer in medications, but medications are not the answer. They are the first step. They open the door. You have to go through the door and change your attitude. You need to change your actions to account for these problems that you may have. So I'm looking online and I'm looking for everything that I can find about, okay, I'm going to need a feeding tube. What are they going to feed me? I find out that they're going to feed me Ensure and Boost and these other ridiculous energy drinks or protein drinks. They're going to just help you to survive. I'm looking at the situation and I'm saying, I have a poison in me, that cancer. They're going to be putting more poison in me, which is the chemo, to kill that poison. And my body's got to fight two poisons now. So I want something that's going to help me to fight, not something that's going to help me to just survive. That's bullshit. No, like I said, I'm not like most people. I know about superfoods. Some people do, some people don't. If you don't, superfoods are foods that are supercharged in nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, some of the highest levels available of certain nutrients. And there's a list of them that you can find online. I went through three different websites and I gathered a list from their top 10 things and I put together a recipe. Okay, well, it's a pint of blueberries, it's two 4.5 ounce cups of yogurt. It's 2 cans of sardine. I'm using spirulina. I'm using krill oil. I'm using royal jelly. I'm using amino acids. I did my homework and I made this mixture. And I will tell you straight to your face that this mixture made me feel like I could kill Superman. I felt absolutely freaking amazing. I could not have imagined that it was going to give me the results that it had, but it was just incredible. I went into week 5 treatment, and when they said, "Hi, Ken, how are you?" I said, "I'm feeling fantastic. I haven't felt this good in probably 25 or 30 years. You know that? I just got so much energy. I feel awesome." You're not supposed to do that going through cancer treatments. You look at anybody else's video, they're going to tell you in week 5, well, my wife had to drive me because I was too weak to drive. Yeah, well, I was able to dance a jig and do anything else I wanted because I was feeling absolutely amazing. But that's a story for another time. Let's get back to the rest of the information about my treatments. After about a week, I lost all my taste buds. And it wasn't that things didn't taste good, it's things tasted bad. That was something I had not anticipated. I was anticipating that my throat was going to close up and I was going to be required to use a feeding tube because I could not eat or drink by mouth. Okay, that doesn't sound so bad. Yeah. Well, we're talking 2 or 3 months of having to use a feeding tube. And I don't care who the hell you think you are, if you have to do that and you think you can just do it, boom, like that, you're full of shit. Let me tell you right now, because that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with. I love to eat, I love food. I'm a cook. I'm always thinking about food. What's my next meal going to be? What am I going to have for breakfast tomorrow morning? Oh, it's only dinner time tonight. Well, yeah, I'm thinking ahead because I love food. Some people eat to live, some people live to eat. I live to eat. Wherever I go, I want the local stuff. I don't want the touristy stuff. I want what the locals eat. So that was a real big issue for me. Well, it turns out that that was not an issue at all. Week 2, I'm going through my radiation treatments. Oh, let me tell you about this mask that they make for you. That's something they don't tell you about either. That's really quite a treat. You lay down, they get you set up in these blocks, and they have this sheet of plastic mesh. They put it over your face. They tell you it's going to be hot for just a second. Well, it's hot for about 4 or 5 seconds. And that 1 or 2 seconds, you almost want to cry out a little bit. It's just enough of that much of a shock. Well, the thing is, this mask fits you so tightly that if you want your eyes open, you have to open them before they put this mask on because it fits so tightly, you cannot open your eyes. It's that tight. Nobody told me about that. I wanted to paint mine Spider Man. Nope, you can't do that. Why not? Well, the ink might interfere with the radiation. Well, I won't paint in the area where the radiation is going to be emitted. Nope, can't do it. Fine. Not a problem. I can live with it. But that was a bit of a surprise nobody told me about. And when you get locked in every day, 5 days a week, they lock your head in and you can't freaking barely breathe out of your mouth. You can't even stick your tongue out. Nothing. Fortunately, it's only for about 10, maybe 15 minutes the most. So you want your eyes open, open your eyes. You want your eyes closed, close your eyes. Whatever you want, you do it. So we're doing this every day. And week 2 comes around and I start to get some pain in my throat. And the pain starts increasing every day, getting to the point where I started to describe it as having a cactus in your mouth. Now, if you get a cactus growing in your mouth, how the hell are you going to eat? Well, you can't. And somewhere around week 3.5 to 4, your throat closes. I mean, not a sip of water, not a nibble, not a crumb of food can go down your throat. You have no choice. You have to use that feeding tube. Well, somewhere around week 4.5 or so, I got this lightning bolt from above to tell me about this herb that I had been prescribed 35 years ago for a stomach issue that I had. And the funny thing was that I hadn't thought about it in a very long time. But when I do think about it, I always thought of it in a cartoon form, where you got this big, wide, flat, blubby layer of your stomach lining, and this big, gooey layer that just kind of goes on down and gives you this nice, fat layer of protection. That's how I pictured it working for me. Well, I thought about it for a minute and I said, I wonder if that would do something for my throat because it was starting to get really bad. Well, I started thinking about it and thinking about it, and I said, how am I going to deliver this? Ah, I'll mix it with aloe. I'll put it in a tea bag. I'll put it in my cheek and gum and just let it sit there and dissipate. And then I started thinking, aloe's really not all that tasty. How about something that people like? Ooh, how about honey? Boom. I got some honey. I ordered some of this herb. I got some silicone molds so I could make lollipops because I started thinking about it. And if I made a lozenge and your throat is starting to get all torn up, you can't get any of that stuff down your throat. So it's not going to do you any good.